Welcome back to the System Read. Today we're dissecting crucial conversations. Marcus, you've been touting this book as some kind of communication operating system for weeks. I've read it, and honestly, I think it's a manual for robots, not humans.
It's not about being a robot, Sarah. It's about having a map when you're lost in a storm. The authors, Patterson, Grenny, Macmillan, and Switzler, spent 25 years watching people like Kevin, who could tell a CEO he was wrong without getting fired. They found that communication isn't just an art, it's a system we can engineer to handle high-stakes moments.
Oh, engineer. I love that. Because humans are famously predictable, right? Let's look at their definition. A crucial conversation is one where stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. My problem is that when those three things hit at once, most people aren't looking for a system. They're looking for the nearest exit.
That's exactly why we need it. Most of us are designed wrong for these moments. When things get heated, our bodies dump adrenaline into our systems, and our brains divert blood from our reasoning centers to our muscles. We're literally trying to solve complex social problems with the brain of a rhesus monkey. The book provides a framework to override that biology.
Override biology? Marcus, that's the most systems expert thing I've ever heard. You can't just override a half-starved brain that's preparing to fight or flee. The book admits we're at our absolute worst when it matters most. It talks about people yelling, withdrawing, and saying things they regret. My reality check is this. Real life is messy, power imbalanced, and emotional. These patterns you see are just convenient theories that fall apart when your boss starts spraying spit while yelling, "I'm not angry."
That example is exactly why the learn to look principle is vital. You have to dual process, monitor the content of what's being said while simultaneously watching the conditions of the conversation. If you see the vein on the forehead swelling, you know safety is at risk. That's a predictable pattern. If you see it, you can fix it.
Fix it? How? By pretending the person isn't a villain? This brings us to the myth of rational dialogue. The book pushes this idea that we can always stay in dialogue, but in the real world, people shut down or explode because they feel unsafe, and sometimes they are unsafe.
But the goal of dialogue is the free flow of meaning. If people are blowing up, what the book calls violence, or clamming up, silence, it's because they've stopped feeling safe. They fear they're being attacked or humiliated. Marcus, the system tells us to step out of the content, rebuild that safety, and then step back in.
Step out, make it safe, step back in. It sounds like a dance step, not a life or death argument over a divorce or a promotion. Let's talk about psychological safety. Marcus, you believe safety enables honesty. But what about power? The book gives an example of a manager, Greta, who gets called a hypocrite in front of 200 people because she's building a $150,000 office while cutting costs.
And Greta handled it brilliantly. She didn't get hooked by her desire to save face or win. She asked herself, what do I really want? She realized her goal was to encourage cost-cutting, and she couldn't do that if people thought she was a hypocrite. She used that penetrating question to refocus her brain away from the adrenaline and back to the goal.
Greta is the CEO, Marcus. She has the power. What about the frightened manager who had to ask the question? He was fidgeting and staring at the floor. If Greta had been a raging hypocrite like her predecessors, that man would have been dead professionally. My point is that safety is a luxury for the people at the top. For everyone else, silence isn't a game. It's a survival strategy to keep their jobs.
The book addresses that with Sucker's choices. We tell ourselves we have to choose between being honest and being kind, or being honest and keeping our jobs. The all-important and ever-elusive "and" is the key. How can I be candid and respectful? How can I disagree with my boss and stay safe?
The elusive "and." It sounds like a mythical creature. You're asking a half-starved brain to find a complex, creative third option while it's under fire. And then there's the shared pool of meaning. Marcus, you say the larger the pool, the smarter the decisions.
Because the pool represents the group's IQ. When people withhold meaning, like the surgical team that watched a surgeon remove the wrong foot because they were afraid to speak up, smart people do collectively stupid things. Dialogue creates synergy where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
But not everyone gets an equal voice in that pool. The book talks about masking, sugarcoating, and couching. People play word games. Even when you think you're in dialogue, someone might be saluting and staying mute, while secretly resenting the decision. You think you have synergy, but what you really have is passive resistance that will poison the results later.
Which is why you have to explore others' paths. You use AMPP, ask, mirror, paraphrase, and, if they're still holding back, prime. You prime the pump by offering your best guess at what they're thinking. It's an act of good faith to build safety when the other person is stuck in silence.
Priming, or as I call it, putting words in someone's mouth. If my boss primes me by saying, "Are you thinking I don't care about your personal life?" What am I supposed to say? If I say yes, I'm a target. If I say no, I'm lying. It feels manipulative, Marcus. It feels like these tools are just a way to compel others to our point of view while pretending we're being gentle.
No, the violence is what compels people. Dialogue is about letting meaning flow. Look at the state method. Share your facts, tell your story, ask for others' paths, talk tentatively, and encourage testing. It starts with facts because they're the least controversial and most persuasive.
I noticed you had company software in your briefcase. That's a fact. But the story is, I think you're a thief. Marcus, these techniques feel fake under real stress. If Carol thinks Bob is having an affair because of a motel bill, she isn't going to talk tentatively. She's going to scream. The Goldilocks test of being just right in your tone is a fantasy when your life is swelling with betrayal.
But Carol did scream in the worst-case version of that story, and it nearly destroyed them. When she used the state skills, she found out the Goodnight Motel charge was actually just a Chinese restaurant that used the same credit card machine. The story, she told herself, was wrong. If she hadn't mastered her story, she would have acted out a lie.
Master my stories. The book says, others don't make you mad. You make you mad. That is such a convenient way to shift the blame onto the person who is suffering. If someone belittles me or threatens me, I'm creating my own emotion? That sounds like gaslighting disguised as self-help.
It's about taking back control. If we are the ones telling the story, we are the ones who can change it. We can move from being a victim to being an actor. We can ask, why would a reasonable, rational, and decent person do what this person is doing? It humanizes the villain so we can stop reacting like an animal and start acting like a partner.
But what if they aren't a reasonable, rational, and decent person? What if they are a control freak or a harasser? The book says we should refuse to make ourselves helpless. But sometimes the situation is helpless. If you have a rebellious teen or a boss who is breaking safety policies, a shared pool of meaning isn't going to fix a broken character.
But the research shows it does work. In the best companies, everyone holds everyone else accountable, regardless of level or position. In companies where quality rules, people discuss problems face-to-face when they first come up. Even in marriages, the scholars Notarius and Markman could predict nearly 90% of divorces just by watching how couples argued. Those who could state their opinions honestly and respectfully stayed together.
Honestly and respectfully. Again, the and. Marcus, we're talking about emotional reality versus theoretical mastery. The book admits that practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. But where do we get perfect practice when our hairs are standing up and our blood is diverted? Most of us are just winging it with a half-starved brain.
So we start small. We use cues. We mark hotspots. We rehearse with a friend. We don't aim for perfection, we aim for progress. The book even says to celebrate your victory when an interaction is merely tense instead of a heated argument.
Merely tense. What a win. Look, Marcus, the book makes an audacious claim that mastering these conversations will kickstart your career, strengthen your relationships, and even improve your health. It claims that people who express themselves effectively have a higher survival rate for life-threatening diseases like malignant melanoma.
Because the negative feelings we hold in and the constant battering we endure in unhealthy conversations slowly eat away at our health. Constant conflict weakens the immune system. Communication isn't just about talking, it's about staying alive.
I don't doubt that stress kills. I doubt that a state script is the cure for a poisoned relationship. These tools can feel like social first aid, but sometimes the wound is too deep for a paraphrase. What happens when you crib your way to a mutual purpose and the other person still withdraws?
Then you work on me first. You realize the only person you can continually inspire, prod, and shape is the person in the mirror. You refuse to be a victim. You stay steely-eyed smart about what you really want.
And if what I really want is for the other person to stop being a jerk? The book says that's a clever story. It's always my fault, my story, my need to build safety. It feels like the person who is trying is the one who has to do all the heavy lifting, while the villain just gets to keep being unsafe.
The rich get richer, Sarah. The most talented are the ones who continually try to improve. Is it fair? Maybe not. But is it effective? Absolutely. Would you rather be right and stuck, or skilled and moving forward?
I'd rather be real. I think this book offers a beautiful breakthrough for people who live in a world of routine and logic. But for those of us in the mess, where opinions vary wildly and emotions run strong, I worry that these tools are just a way to sugarcoat a failed conversation.
Then let's encourage testing. Let's see if these skills actually work under pressure. The authors say communication works for those who work at it. They've watched it change lives, organizations, and even heal communities.
Heal communities. One crucial conversation at a time. It's a nice thought, Marcus. But in a world of flying fists and fleet feet, I'm still not sure a shared pool of meaning is enough to stop the adrenaline.
Maybe not always, but it's a lever long enough to start moving the world.
Well, I guess that's the one thing we can agree on. We're out of time. Marcus, thanks for the dialogue.
Anytime, Sarah, anytime.
Thank you for listening to this discussion on the System Read podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe to ensure you don't miss our upcoming deep dives.